And we're recording. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, where Kathy's at. I'm Emma, the life historian. You probably know me if you're here on the page. This is Cathi Nelson, my expert advisor of the day. She is did you found the professional photo organizing group?
Yep. So I'm the founder of the Association of Professional Photo Organizers.
And you also have two online classes. You have Digital Photo Organizing Made Easy and Print Photo Organizing Made Easy, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And you have a book on photo organizing made easy. There it is. Very good. And that's available online, correct?
That's on Amazon. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I asked Kathy to come in today and talk to us a little bit about photo organizing, because a lot of people who are thinking about writing their memoirs, they're going through their things. They're hiring organizers, and they've got boxes and boxes of photos. And, what do you keep? And they're asking their kids, what do you want? And we're going, I don't know. I'm not going to take all of it.
Right.
So it's part of the process. And actually, in my program that I put people through, looking at photos is part of the interview process if you're interviewing a family member, because it brings out more memories when they have a photo to look at. And also, if you're writing your own memoir, looking at photos is a great way to trigger memories. So tell us a little bit. So speaking to those people who are going through their photos and they want to make them easily accessible, they also want to preserve them, because sometimes we're looking at really old photos. Give us sort of the rules of thumb that someone can keep in mind when they're going through their photos to keep them archived, to preserve them, but also have them accessible for the memory.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Absolutely. I'm going to start and talk specifically about printed photos right now digital, they're almost two different worlds at this point, right?
Yes.
So, but starting, if you're talking about memoir work, probably starting with the boxes of printed photos that people have. So when I started this, I came up with an acronym for my clients to help them kind of get their mind around this, because everybody has, there's not a person that you're going to meet at some point who doesn't have boxes of photos or bags or photos and albums or scrapbooks. It's part of our culture, tradition. I think there's 1 trillion photos that were taken, printed photos that still exist, analog photos. And the number of digital would just blow your mind if I give you those statistics. So the acronym that I like to tell people is called the ABCs of photo organizing, right? So here's the thought to keep in mind. The A, as you go through your photos, first of all, we talk about the hunt and gather. So the number one goal is to get everything in one place so you can access what you have. Because right now you have photos probably in, boxes and drawers in the attic, in the basement. And so you can't really dive in deep unless you really get an overview of what you have. So if you gather everything in one place and do an inventory, and actually on my website, cathynelson.com, there's a free downloadable inventory form that you might make notes. I have 7 blue magnetic albums, and these are the dates. I have 5 boxes of loose photos. I don't know what's in there, but just an overall big. Once you kind of, that's a great way to start if you can do that.
And let me cut in real quick. In the Life Story Academy group, I actually have a survey to send to family members asking them what they have. If they have heirloom things that can be photographed, and also, documents. Do you have birth certificates? Do you have marriage certificates? So, do you have family members in that? What's that?
Right. I have a whole section on that. And where are they? Like, where might you find them? I talk about where, other people may have photos. There's online, ancestry.com. People may have loaded up photos you don't know about. His libraries may have. It's amazing, right? If you really want to do a deep dig into, so I go into a lot more detail. But that's so important.
Yeah, just finding out who has what. I had no idea that my great grandma wrote her memoir until I started interviewing my grandma. And I asked her, can we look at photos? And she said, like, what photos? I said, I don't know, just grab a box of photos. And she brought out a cigar box from her closet that had been left to her by her grandma that she had never opened.
That's amazing.
I turned my voice recorder on and recorded the process of her opening it and reacting to the photos. Really beautiful. We turned the photos into a book. It was an amazing project. So once you find out who has what,
and you've gathered your own photos, right? As we call it, the hunt and gather stage. then there's a lot more, you know, the tools that I'm not going to go into those kind of details. Like, you know, you might want to have like a face mask, because if they're in old boxes, your photos could be moldy, and, you know, there could be, you know, you could start sneezing, and there's things like that. But just for the overall concept. So so you want to look at your photos in terms of the A photos. The question you want to ask yourself, is this album worthy? Is it archival worthy? That's the photo that you want. Those are photos you want to keep.
Okay.
The B photos are the photos that you can't really quite decide, right? I mean, it's really hard to make that decision. The C photos are, yes, you can throw photos away. So we recommend that you sort through and curate and get yourself down to the 20% best photos. And that's where the S comes in. And this is where we're very well aligned, is the S is, does the photo tell a story? Because then it becomes an A photo. So you may look at a photo and it might be your grandfather making a really silly face with somebody on his knee. I might look at that photo and think, well, that's not of a lot of value, because he was got to look at that funny face. But you know, that's the face that your grandfather always made. And so that becomes an A photo because it tells a story.
Yeah.
So those are the important. So the A is is it archival, you know, album worthy. B is, so this is a joke. So once you get your A photos, and you have probably quite a few B, because people really do have a hard time throwing photos away, you can put them in a box and then put a note on that, in that box, saying, dear family members, if I've passed away, you have full rights to throw these photos away. I just couldn't do it. Right. Something like that. Because, you know, it's just funny how even myself, I mean, even as the photo organizer, I have lots of B photos that I just can't throw them away, but my kids can throw them away. But I have the A photos sorted out, where those are the ones that tell the story. Now, the other important thing is, a lot of people think that, and it'd be interesting to how you do this with memoir, is that I always say we take photos chronologically, you know, in time, date, order, but we live and remember thematically. So when you're organizing your photos, if you haven't kept them in chronological order, which most people haven't, they open up the box and they think, oh no, I don't know if Susie is 5 in this picture, or 7. I don't know if this was Christmas, you know, 1991 or 1989. What Christmas tree was that? Whatever. That's okay. That's not what matters. Think about, what are the themes that you took photos in your life? And if you start looking at your photos and look for themes, I guarantee you're going to notice. And I can tell you, I can ask you, let me guess. Why don't you tell me what you think the themes are that people take photos of?
Holidays.
Yeah.
So birthday, Christmas, Easter,
Yep.
Halloween costumes.
Yep. Halloween's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vacations, sporting events, you know, first day of school is like the classic, you know, the first day of school photos. And so I always tell people, then you want to, maybe you can sort your photos into thematic, either photo safe boxes or an album at some point, if you're going to do that, if you're going to digitize them and scan them. But here's some theme ideas. Like you can get an archival safe box. You don't want to put them in, you know, a plastic box or anything. You can get those through a company called Archival Methods, or again, in my book on my website, I recommend companies that we know and we've worked with. But so we're a family that love to travel, right? And so you gather all your vacation photos over the years. It's much more interesting. A lot of times families go back to the same place year after year. That's a common tradition, right? Like, oh, you know, here in New England, the Cape Cod would be a traditional place that families, they just have a tradition where they go clamming and they go to the same ice cream place, all those things. It doesn't have to be like, oh, this is when we went clamming in, you know, 1998. And you can just say, we're a family that love to travel and clam, you know, the smell of the salt air and the feel of the cold water on our feet, and you know, finding the big bucket of clams and then cooking them up was just made our family feel really close, right? That's the story. And those are the photos that go with that story. And you can put that story on an index card or in some format in the box with the photos, and your kids will love that someday, and you'll be thrilled that you have those memories accessible to you. So it's, again, narrowing down that huge, you know, thousands of photos down to those 20% photos that tell that story, and then you can do it organized thematically as opposed to chronologically.
So that brings up another point. When we were going through this box, my grandma and I, she found a picture that she thought was her grandmother, but written on it in her grandmother's writing was the word mother. And she discovered that it was not her grandmother, it was her great grandmother. And the two women looked very much alike, which once she started looking at the composition of the photo and when it was probably taken, it made more sense. So, you know, the picture helps to tell the story, but unless you have the story, sometimes the picture, you don't know who's in it. You don't know what's going on. How do you recommend people save the written story with the photo story? Do you recommend that they write names on the back?
If somebody's written the names on the back, that it's funny that older pictures are easier to identify because people used to do that. When you scan and digitize, a good scanning company you're going to scan, you can scan the front and the back so that the photos are linked and you keep that information. Otherwise, I do recommend writing on the back can get tedious. But if you, again, using this idea of index cards or something so that you want to do photos maybe in groupings, and then just jot down those stories and then organize those photos with those stories attached. So, but definitely, or take the time, we recommend that you use a photo safe pencil, not an ink pen, because it can kind of bleed through. But that's extremely important. And honestly, the word metadata today that's used in digital, that's just what that means. It's identifying photos. It's like writing on the back of a photo. The problem with the digital photos today is they're all numbered 00111, or now we know with geotagging and face recognition, it can give us, in artificial intelligence can tell us who's in the photo, where it was taken, when it was taken, but there's no way to tell the story. Now you can, with good software and things, do add that storytelling piece, but that's really important.
Yeah. So let's talk about digitizing. Where, you're digitizing your photos. Where is it safe? Because there are services that will say, oh, you can set up a family account and then everyone can contribute their stuff, but none of them have sort of made it past that startup phase, in my opinion. And if you're going to put all the work into digitizing your stuff and creating a family album, you want it to go someplace that's secure. What's the best, safest place for your family to store that?
Yeah, so we recommend the industry standards is the 3-2-1 backup. So we recommend that first of all, if you're going to digitize yourself, you're going to scan yourself. That's a whole process in and of itself. You can send your photos to mail order. I know there was just a big scandal though with a company on Inside Edition yesterday that lost lots of people's photos. They're spending millions of dollars on advertising. So I recommend that you look for somebody local in your own community, either at appo.org. You can find a photo organizer who does scanning, or Google it in your community. So they're coming and picking up your photos for you. You meet the person, they care about your photos, and they're going to do a really good job. So I recommend that over. There are good mail order companies, so not all of them are bad, but in some ways you are releasing your cherished photos into the. But when they come back, we recommend that you use. So okay, the 3-2-1 backup is that you want 3 copies stored in one in the cloud. So when we say the cloud, we mean like either Backblaze or Mozy or Carbonite, which is actually backing up everything on your computer. So that's just a good backup. An external hard drive, which you have in your possession. So not just relying on your computer hard drive. So you want to have an external hard drive, and then at least 1 copy, and then 1 physical copy is the ideal situation. So print some of those photos.
Okay.
Now, in terms of what you're asking, in terms of creating photo galleries and things, I agree. We've actually, because I've been doing this for 9 years, we have over 800 members in 8 different countries. We've actually experimented with a lot of these companies and have gotten disappointed ourselves because we believed, the story because they are startups, just like you said many times, and it's hard to get revenue out of this process. SmugMug just bought Flickr. They do a beautiful online photo gallery. We've worked closely with them. I don't think they're going anywhere. Any of the Adobe suite of products, Adobe's not going anywhere. I think you just want to make sure that you're working with a company. Now, right now, the problem with these like Google Photos and Amazon Prime Photos, they're saying, you free store, a terabyte of storage for free and everything. But what that's doing is forcing you or causing you to just upload, it's like a huge dump. And I always joke with people when they say like, oh, 99 cents, you're out of storage, add 99 cents. What if somebody knocked on your door and said, hey, you're out of closet space. Let me just build you another closet, right? You'd be like, no way. I don't need all these closets. That's what you're doing when you keep accepting more and more space storage for your photo collections, your video collections. You're literally just creating a nightmare for yourself into the future. Does that make sense?
I'm kind of wondering, is there a point where you have so many photos that any one photo isn't actually accessible? Because photo albums from my childhood, I make it a point to make a photo album of my kids' first year of life, because trying to dig through my photos to find my favorites from their first year of life is going to be a nightmare 20 years from now, when I have a billion photos of each kid,
Yeah, right. It's just like, right. You can just snap a million. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yes. So that digital asset management is really the word for that, but people don't, the consumer is just now catching on to that. Wow, I've got myself in a lot of trouble. So the
Yeah.
fact that you make albums is great. You can, give a heart or give it a star rating. There's different ways, but take the time to do that because, when your kids graduate from high school, right, you're going to want to look back over, and you're not going to even create something for them if you've never done anything with all those photos.
Yeah. You could make their entire graduation album with last week's pictures.
Correct.
Because there's so many of them. Now, or organizing, personal organizers, that is a business that is just booming. I don't know if it's across the country or if it's just in California, but I know at least in California, there's a lot of organizers. And so I want to speak to the organizers out there. Cathi has this resource you can join, and you can be accessible, and you can be the local person that people reach out to. How do people join and become one of your members as a photo organizer?
Yeah, they just go to appo.org and it says join, and it's $349 a year or $99 a quarter. And everybody will say, but I don't know how to organize photos. And we laugh. Well, we started a new profession that didn't exist. Now it's been 9 years. We have an annual conference. Our next year will be in Atlanta. We just finished our 7th annual conference. So we provide training, a lot of training and support. We have an amazing community. There's no way you can know everything. That's the hard part. So on our Facebook, members only page, somebody will say, oh, wow, I have this client with a Mac, I'm trying to or they have an old Mac, I'm trying to log in. And then the Mac experts will say, well, do this. And everybody helps each other. But if it's, you can join at appo.org, or you can outsource it if you're a professional residential organizer and you don't want to touch photos, or you're a senior move manager or a historian. You can look for a local photo organizer and then work together in teams. Many of our members work with other professionals, and they kind of just work really nicely together because each person has their own little window of what they really love doing. Yeah. So we have members who only want to make really beautiful high-end photo albums, and they're stunning what they do for, high-end clients who travel to amazing locations. So they're not going to scan. They don't want to, so it's like you can find your niche that you love and then develop that as your business model.
Cool. You ever host scanathons or anything like that where you just, really
people have done that. Yeah.
To say, yes, this is the weekend, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. We named September as Save Your Photos Month. And lots of our members will we'll have like scanning events in Rochester. They did it at the local fire station, and kind of the idea of, especially anybody, like you're in California, right? So the fires have devastated. People recognize, oh my gosh. I mean, we have so many members who helped clients. Some of our members tell these amazing stories that they actually had their clients' photos that they were working on, and they were, loading up their cars, or the clients are just so thrilled that they had actually had them digitized. So even though everything was burned, their photos were safe. So anything with tornadoes.
I made me ask my husband, I was like, can we save some of our photos at someone else's house?
Yes, we recommend.
At my parents' house down in San Diego, so that if something happens, if our house burns down, we have another copy somewhere else.
That's why that 3-2-1 backup, right? So ideally, maybe an external hard drive at your parents, or whatever. Like, just copy your photo collection onto an external hard drive and bring it to your parents once a year. I mean, that's a really good idea, because otherwise, it really is a scary process, and people are devastated because they tell those again, it's not all the photos. And that's the other thing that makes it so hard. If you've not organized your photos, you can't get all the boxes. I talked to a woman, I interviewed her from the Woolsey fire, and she just had too many photos. She had to leave a lot behind because they got a bunch in her car, but she was devastated. It was her family. Her mom had died when she was young, and she lost all the photos of her mom and herself as a young girl. They had just never gotten around to scanning. So
not taking for granted those photos, making sure that you save them, making sure you organize them so that they're accessible, making sure that you archive them so that if something happens, they're still a copy someplace. Well, I think it would be great to do a scanathon here in Sacramento in September.
Okay, you're in Sacramento. Yeah. I know we have members, but you'd have to look, but I think it's a great idea. They're high-speed scanners. A lot of our members have, so there's the Epson Fast Photo at this point, which is there's also a Kodak PS50 where it's a feeder. So they're expensive scanners that not everybody has one, but you can do like 100 photos in 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, it's amazing when they just,
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's like putting a photo on a flatbed and going like this,
Yeah, that's how I did my grandma's. And it was like, I would hit scan and then go make lunch.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah.
I thought I would be smart and scan several at a time, but then I had to go in and like separate manually separate the photos after they'd been scanned in, and that was a pain. So
Yeah, same thing with slides. We recommend actually we recommend getting the experts a good slide scanner that you want them at a really high resolution, high DPI. So there's really great scanners that a company can do it for you a lot less, better use of your time really than but if you have slides, there's an app you can download for your iPad, like it's a light table app, so you can kind of, if you don't know what's on the slides, which is common, you can look at them that way and identify which are the photos that you want to spend the money actually to convert. So, and home movies, we didn't even talk about that, but that's a whole nother. You should have your home movies converted to MP4 files. Get them off those old tapes, those old movie files. They're deteriorating, and those also have amazing history and stories.
Yeah, and I found a VHS tape that my friend made of us surprising her brother on his 16th birthday, and I just was like, I don't even know how to watch this.
No, there's no more VCR. Yeah, right. And unfortunately, a lot of people convert. Whoops,
Oh no,
I'm back. My phone fell. They converted them to DVDs, and the problem with DVDs are they're obsolete. Like, you can't buy, a new computer doesn't have a DVD drive.
Yeah, and they can deteriorate pretty quickly. DVDs.
So we recommend like Vimeo or one of that you get it converted to it. So a good company will not send you a DVD if the company's telling you, hey, we'll put it on a DVD. They're not doing you any favors. They need to put it on an MP3 file on a flash drive and then upload it you can upload it or to Dropbox or somewhere where you have a backup copy. But the ones that are still, there's a lot of companies out there still saying they'll put them on DVDs, and the consumer, the older folks, they think, oh, a DVD, they've upgraded from VCR. They don't realize that their kids aren't going to be able to access that DVD. So they just don't realize it. Yeah.
So Cathi, I'm just sort of going to summarize what we've talked about here. So, hunt and gather, ask your family members who has what, sort your photos by theme, include index cards for the story, sort them by if it's an A-list photo, archive or album quality, if it's a B-list, which means I'm not sure quite yet. But if I don't figure it out, feel free to throw it away. C quality, which is, it's okay to let this go. Digitize, scan your stuff. 3, 2, 1, I can count 3, 2, 1. So have your cloud, have your external hard drive, have a hard copy, printed copy. This is I'm sort of just making sure I got everything that people can think of when they're going through their stuff or their parents' stuff, and also when they're writing their own stories, because a lot of people like to do their memoir with photos.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the photos, like you said, they're a trigger to memory. They're kind of a confirmation. And again, though, what people care about, I always say we take photos to tell the stories of our lives. It's kind of, we've become visual storytellers a lot in the culture, and more and more, but the words really matter. I still believe as well. I'm with you on that. I think telling a bit of a story around a photo is going to give it a lot more life and meaning than just the photo itself. So
yeah Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being generous with your time. We are going to put links to Cathi's courses, to her book, to her association of photo organizers, so that anyone who's in photo organizing can join and then be found and be accessible, or anyone who's thinking about picking up, specializing or picking up that profession. As far as, profession fees, that's pretty cheap. The Memoir Writers Association, I think it was $1,000 a year for association fees. So,
there's a Memoir Association. I didn't know that. I have to check them out.
Yeah, there was the Association of Personal Historians, which is,
I knew them.
Yeah. So, and they went away, unfortunately. So we're on our own.
Well, a lot of them found their way to our conference. So,
Really?
you might want to look at, because there is that natural tie-in. I think 4 or 5 of them were at our conference this year in New Mexico. And they're trying to let other personal historians know that there actually is a fit. Because we are becoming more and more, we're growing so much, we're becoming more set. We're thinking of changing our name even, because photo organizing is just one piece of it. We're thinking of, like, I don't know, photo manager. It gets hard to, personal historians, memoir writers, there's just so many.
There's a lot of crossover, because there are people who were personal historians who only did visual.
Yep.
So they only did video. There were some that only did audio interviews. Some who did photo albums. So there is a lot of crossover there. I'm glad that connection's being made.
Yeah, it's being made. Right. Because you need a community. It's really because it's lonely by yourself. I mean, the idea is that we're a real welcoming community. There's no competition. Our members, we believe in a rising tide lifts all boats. So people are always, the biggest compliments we get is just how friendly everybody is. There's not a competitive group. Everybody's helping each other. Because again, there's just so many, and everybody's kind of new at it. There's no expert in this, especially with the digital. It's just, it's like even us trying to get our Facebook, our Zoom.
Oh yeah, you
right?
guys should have seen the, you know, the tech problem solving, troubleshooting that went on before this. So thank you again so much for your time. And anyone who's got questions for Cathi, please reach out to her. She's very responsive, very easy to get a hold of. If you have questions about writing your story, please get a hold of me. I'm a huge memoir advocate, so I'm ready to talk to anyone who needs to write their memoir, whether you're ready to hire or not. That's just something that I spend a lot of time advocating for, and Cathi spends a lot of time advocating as well. So we are great resources for you, and we hope that you take these resources and save your story.
Great. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.